From the outside, it looked like just another rookie signing. A fifth-round quarterback, charismatic and talented, inking his first NFL contract with a team that wasn't entirely sure where he'd fit into the depth chart. The headlines were routine. The figures, modest by NFL standards, but buried in the fine print, hidden in a clause most people would skim right past, was a kind of detail that could rewrite the power balance between players and the league forever. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Shedeur Sanders didn't just sign a rookie deal. He detonated a blueprint. On paper, the salary looked like every other fifth-rounder's paycheck. Nothing extravagant. Nothing that would make executives lose sleep. But Shedeur, guided by a family legacy that's been rewriting sports business rules since the early 90s, didn't care about what was on the surface. He cared about leverage. He cared about ownership. And he cared about not just playing in the NFL, but playing the business game better than anyone before him. That's where the prime equity clause came in. The clause was simple in wording, but seismic in impact. Shedeur retained 100% of the rights to his name, image, and likeness, and most importantly, a 20% cut of every dollar earned from merchandise, sponsorships, and media content tied to his brand. Not the team's brand, not the league's brand, his brand. Jerseys with his name, 20%. Special edition merchandise lines, 20%. Every highlight clip used in official NFL programming that the league monetizes, that's a check in Shedeur's mailbox. This wasn't a legal fluke. It was intentional. Coach Prime Deion Sanders had spent decades in sports watching athletes become global icons, but somehow remain at the mercy of the leagues that employed them. He saw rookies make millions for the NFL in jersey sales, while personally pocketing little more than their fixed salaries. He saw players become the faces of marketing campaigns without owning a single piece of the media rights to their own likeness. And when Shedeur's turn came, Deion made sure history wouldn't repeat itself. The result in his rookie season alone, before playing a single regular season snap. Shedeur generated hundreds of millions in brand-related revenue for the Browns and the NFL ecosystem. His jersey was a top seller nationwide, not because he was a household NFL name yet, but because the Sanders family had already built one of the most loyal, engaged fan bases in all of sports. And thanks to that prime equity clause, Shedeur didn't have to settle for a symbolic gain check while the league reaped all the rewards. The reported number over $14 million in direct profit flowing straight into his accounts, not filtered through the NFL's revenue sharing model, not capped by collective bargaining limits. His fifth-round rookie contract just became one of the most profitable first-year deals in NFL history purely because he owned his brand. The league wasn't ready for it. See, the NFL has built its empire on controlling the image and identity of its players. They license the jerseys. They approve the sponsorships. They own the media rights. If a player's highlight goes viral, it's often the NFL making the money, not the athlete. But Shedeur's contract carved out an entirely new lane. He's not just a quarterback on the Browns roster. He's an independent brand inside the NFL framework. The ripple effect is already here. Agents are calling his camp, asking how they can replicate the clause for their own clients. Rookie negotiations in the next draft class will inevitably be colored by this precedent. Because once players see that they can double or triple their earnings simply by owning their likeness, there's no going back. The pushback from the NFL side has been quiet but pointed. Executives worry that if too many players demand equity clauses, the league's centralized control over merchandising could fracture. Imagine a dozen different rookies, each owning their jersey sales. Suddenly, the NFL's profit margins on merchandise shrink and individual teams lose leverage in marketing their own stars. For Shedeur, though, this isn't a problem. It's the plan. He's not trying to tear down the system. He's trying to evolve it. In interviews, he's already hinted that athletes need to think of themselves as CEOs, not just employees. Playing quarterback might be his craft, but his business is Shedeur Sanders Incorporated. This isn't just about money. It's about freedom. Freedom to sign sponsorships without league interference. Freedom to produce his own media content, YouTube series, documentaries, digital shorts, and monetize it directly. Freedom to build a brand that will outlast his NFL career, just like his father did with endorsements and TV. And that's the part the league fears the most, longevity. When an athlete owns their brand, The NFL becomes a chapter in their story, not the whole book. That's a shift in power the league has fought against for decades. But here's the thing. Shedeur is uniquely built for this. His college career at Colorado wasn't just about football. It was a masterclass in modern athlete marketing. He was producing content, engaging with fans, and building a persona that was bigger than his stat line. He walked into the NFL with a fully formed audience. And instead of handing it over to the league, he kept it. Now, the question is how far this model can go. Could we see an NFL where players negotiate for partial ownership in the team-branded merchandise they help sell? Could future stars skip the traditional marketing apparatus entirely and build direct-to-consumer sports brands? If Shedeur's success continues, the answer might be yes. Already corporate sponsors are lining up not through the Browns, but directly through his personal channels, energy, drink deals, apparel lines, content partnerships. Because when they sign Shedeur, they're not just getting an NFL player. They're getting the whole Sanders machine, the built-in audience, the Coach Prime Association, the ability to bypass league restrictions and deliver marketing that feels authentic, not corporate scripted. Inside the Browns building, it's created an interesting dynamic. On one hand, the team benefits from the extra attention, ticket sales, merchandise, media coverage. On the other hand, they know Shedeur's value doesn't rely on them, and that's a rarity in pro sports. Most rookies need the team's platform to become stars. Shedeur brought his own platform with him. And make no mistake, this wasn't just luck. This was negotiation. Most rookie deals are boilerplate contracts, copy-pasted from the league's standard forms. The prime equity clause was fought for, drafted, and defended before it ever reached the signing stage. It's why in some corners of the league, Shedeur's contract is referred to as the Sanders President. If history is any indicator, he won't be the last. The NBA already has players like LeBron James and Kevin Durant building empires alongside their careers. In soccer, global icons like Messi and Ronaldo operate as brands first, athletes second. The NFL has been slower to adapt, but Shedeur just accelerated the timeline. The whispers started almost immediately after Shedeur's contract details leaked. In NFL front offices, where executives usually treat rookie signings as nothing more than routine paperwork, there was suddenly a new kind of energy, a mix of disbelief, curiosity, and in some cases, outright alarm. General managers were texting each other in short clip messages. "Did you see this Sanders clause?" Agents were calling the NFLPA to ask if this kind of deal was even possible under the current collective bargaining agreement. And marketing departments, they were scrambling to figure out if this meant they'd have to share revenue streams they'd always considered untouchable. The NFL as a business is built on the idea that the shield, the league's brand, comes before any individual player. Sure, they promote stars, but those stars exist within the structure the league controls. Shedeur's deal cracked that structure open, and it wasn't just a crack. It was a kind of hairline fracture that spreads quickly if you're not careful. Inside the NFLPA's offices, there was a different reaction opportunity. Player reps had been pushing for years to give athletes more freedom over their likeness and merchandise revenue, but the league had always pushed back. Now, one rookie quarterback had just done it without a full-blown labor fight. Some in the union saw Shedeur's clause as a proof of concept, a test case they could point to in the next round of collective bargaining. But the league's legal department was already working the other angle. How to make sure this didn't become standard. They knew the next draft class would be watching closely. If even a handful of high-profile rookies demanded similar clauses, the merchandising model could shift overnight. That would mean less control over branding, fewer exclusive deals the league could cut without player approval, and a hit to centralized revenue. In other words, a loss of power. Meanwhile, on the player side, the ripple effect was already visible. Veterans in locker rooms across the league were pulling their younger teammates aside to talk business. Wide receivers who'd sold thousands of jerseys but never seen a dime outside their base salary were suddenly asking their agents why they didn't have equity clauses. Defensive stars with growing social media followings started thinking about how they could turn that audience into direct revenue without the league taking its cut. And for incoming rookies, Shedeur had just handed them a blueprint. Agents began studying the language of his deal, preparing to use it as leverage in upcoming negotiations. Some were already telling their college clients, "We're going to push for a Sanders-style clause." That phrase Sanders-style clause was spreading like wildfire. The kind of insider term that in a year's time would be common vocabulary in NFL business circles. Shedeur, for his part, wasn't shy about the bigger picture. In interviews, he kept steering the conversation toward empowerment. "If you don't own your name, you don't own your work," he told one local outlet. That wasn't just a soundbite. It was a mission statement. He knew exactly what he'd done, and he wasn't going to let the story die in a news cycle. The Browns, caught in the middle, were doing a delicate dance. Publicly, they praised Shedeur's focus, his maturity, his on-field potential. Privately, they were dealing with the reality that their rookie quarterback had become a brand bigger than their franchise's own marketing machine. Usually, when a player's popularity explodes, the team reaps the benefit. But with Shedeur, that benefit was shared, and the team wasn't used to sharing. In the locker room, it was different. Teammates weren't threatened by his business success. They respected it. Some of them even started asking for advice. How do you negotiate for media rights? How do you build a brand that lasts beyond your playing days? Shedeur didn't hoard the answers. If anything, he seemed to enjoy breaking it down, explaining how his dad had taught him to think like a CEO, even while preparing like an athlete. And here's the thing, this wasn't just theoretical money. The numbers were staggering. Shedeur's personal brand channels, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, were already monetized and thriving. With the NFL spotlight, those numbers tripled. And because he owned the rights, every highlight clip that went viral on his pages paid him, not the league. Every time a fan bought a Sanders jersey from an official outlet, a percentage went directly to him. Sponsors loved it. Unlike other rookies where the team or league acted as a middleman, Shedeur could negotiate directly. That meant more authentic partnerships and quicker turnaround on campaigns. Within months, he had deals with brands outside the NFL's usual stable. Tech companies, fashion labels, even a streaming service developing adversaries. On his rookie year, the NFL's marketing executives couldn't ignore it. They'd spent years perfecting a one-size-fits-all approach to player branding, and here was a guy who didn't need it and was arguably doing it better. That was dangerous. If Shedeur's model proved sustainable, the league might have to rethink how it handled every marketable player. The first sign of real pushback came at the annual owners' meeting. Multiple executives raised concerns about contract anomalies that could disrupt revenue sharing. The conversation was cautious. They didn't want to make it sound like they were targeting one player, but everyone in the room knew they were talking about Shedeur Sanders. The NFL thrives on uniformity, and he was anything but uniform. Back in Cleveland, though, Shedeur wasn't slowing down. On the field, his play was making it impossible to treat him as just a business story. The same confidence he had in negotiations was showing up under center, commanding the huddle, reading defenses, making throws that reminded fans why his name carried weight long before he stepped onto an NFL field. This combination, elite branding off the field, poised performance on it, was exactly why the NFL was nervous. Most players are one or the other. A star who's both, that's leverage the league can't control. And then came the moment that made every owner in the NFL pay attention. A merchandise report leaked showing that Shedeur's jersey had outsold multiple Pro Bowlers in just his first month. That alone would have been a nice headline, but buried in the data was the kicker. Because of the prime equity clause, his personal earnings from those sales were higher than his entire rookie salary. The math didn't lie. In the old model, a rookie quarterback needed years of playing time, endorsements, and playoff appearances to see that kind of personal revenue. Shedeur had done it in weeks. By now, rival GMs were strategizing. Some were intrigued, wondering if they could attract free agents by offering similar clauses. Others were terrified of the president. A few even floated the idea of lobbying the NFL to ban such clauses in future contracts, citing competitive balance. Shedeur's camp wasn't worried. They knew once the door was open, it would be hard for the league to close it without looking anti-player. Public sentiment was firmly on his side. Fans loved the idea of athletes owning their work, and the media was painting him as a trailblazer. By the time the season reached its midpoint, the phrase Sanders Clause was no longer just insider jargon. It had become a full-on rallying cry in the agent community. At the NFL combined, in the dimly lit corners of hotel lobbies, where executives, scouts, and agents mingle overpriced cocktails, the topic kept circling back to Shedeur. Not his arm strength, not his rookie stats, not his QB rating. It was always the same, whispered refrain. Did you hear how much he's making off merch? The numbers had become something of a legend. More than $250 million in total Sanders-branded merchandise revenue league-wide. $14 million of that going directly into his pocket. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not under the rigid structure of rookie deals. And yet there he was, proving the impossible wasn't just possible. It was profitable. What made it even more unsettling for the league was that Shedeur wasn't acting like a one-off anomaly. He wasn't content to quietly cash his checks. He was talking about it openly, strategically, and in a way that was planting seeds in the minds of every young athlete who was listening. On a Thursday night player podcast hosted by two former All-Pros, Shedeur dropped what would become his most replayed quote of the season. They tell you to focus on football and let the rest take care of itself. But if you don't take care of your business, someone else will, and it won't be you getting paid. That line hit the NFL like a meteor. The older generation of players, guys who'd spent their careers under the league's tight branding control, felt a mix of admiration and frustration. Younger players, still on rookie deals or just breaking into the league, felt something different. Possibility. And with possibility came pressure. The NFLPA began fielding calls from agents who wanted formal language added to the next CBA allowing players to carve out personal equity rights. It was too early to tell if that would happen, but the union was clearly paying attention. In private, one union executive even admitted what Sanders did might be the most important contract move we've seen since the rookie wage scale was introduced. Meanwhile, inside the Browns facility, Shedeur's influence was seeping into places no rookie influence had any business reaching. Marketing meetings began factoring his personal brand calendar into the team's own promotional schedule. The social media department had to coordinate with his content team to avoid clashing announcements. Even the equipment staff noticed changes. Orders for custom Sanders gear were flooding in from across the country, not just from Ohio. The front office was split. Some saw it as a headache. Others saw it as the future. GM Andrew, who had fought to draft Shedeur in the first place, viewed it as validation. His bet wasn't just on a quarterback. It was on a quarterback who could redefine what it